The crystal chandelier cast 1,000 diamonds of light across the grand ballroom of the Sheila Hotel as Victoria Hamilton's voice cut through the elegant murmur of Seoul's elite like a blade through silk. In the States, we call that money laundering. 200 guests in custom hanbok and Italian suits turned to stare at the Afro-American woman in burgundy silk, who had just committed social suicide. Her pearl necklace, 4 generations of Hamilton women's legacy, caught the light as she faced the man who could destroy her with a whisper. Kang Min-ho stood frozen, a crystal glass of untouched champagne suspended halfway to his lips. For 32 years, no one had dared challenge him publicly. His dark eyes, usually cold as winter steel, flickered with something unprecedented. Surprise. Ms. Hamilton. His voice remained dangerously calm, but Victoria caught the slight tightening around his eyes. Perhaps you misunderstand Korean business practices. I understand numbers. Victoria stepped closer, her heels clicking against marble like a countdown. Your Apex Holdings acquired 6 failing companies in 18 months. Each bankruptcy conveniently cleared exactly 2.3 billion won in debt. That's not business acumen. That's orchestration. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Minho's right hand, scarred across the knuckles from a past he'd buried, clenched imperceptibly. Behind him, Park Jun-sik touched his chest. A nervous tell Victoria's photographer's eye immediately catalogued. You're playing a dangerous game, Minho whispered, stepping into her space. This close, Victoria caught his scent, expensive cologne masking something darker. In Korea, we value respect. And in America, we value truth. Victoria's chin lifted defiantly. Your mother's cosmetics empire, your real estate ventures, your charity foundations, all perfectly positioned to clean money that smells like blood. Choi So-young's jade bracelet clinked as her hand flew to her throat. Matriarch Kang Hyejin's fan snapped shut with audible finality. Security guards in black suits began a subtle advance toward the confrontation. Minho's scar began to itch. It always did when his carefully constructed world threatened to crumble. This American woman with fire in her eyes had just spoken truths that could topple empires. Escort Ms. Hamilton to her room, he commanded, his voice deadly quiet. She's clearly overwhelmed by jet lag. But as 2 guards moved forward, Victoria smiled. The same fearless expression that had closed billion-dollar hotel deals across 3 continents. I'm not going anywhere, Mr. Kang. We're just getting started. The champagne glass slipped from Minho's fingers, shattering against the floor in a shower of crystal and consequence. In that moment, he realized Victoria Hamilton wasn't just another privileged tourist. She was the woman who could destroy everything he'd built, or become the salvation he'd never dared to dream possible. The question was, which would she choose? If the man who controlled Seoul's shadows had just met his match in an American heiress who feared nothing, would love be enough to redeem a heart stained with blood? Victoria Hamilton had attended 1,000 galas, but she'd never felt power this suffocating. The Sheila Hotel's ballroom thrummed with whispered Korean, each conversation a chess move in games she couldn't yet decipher. Her burgundy Valentino dress, chosen for confidence, not seduction, felt like armor against the curious stares following her every step. You shouldn't have come alone, James Hamilton had warned via video call from New York. Seoul society operates on relationships built over generations. You're walking into a maze blindfolded. Now, watching Korea's elite navigate social hierarchies with balletic precision, Victoria understood his concern. But the Hamilton Hotel Group needed Asian expansion, and she refused to send proxies to do work she could handle herself. Ms. Hamilton? A woman in powder blue hanbok approached with calculated grace. I'm Choi So-young. I studied at Columbia, class of 2015. Victoria accepted the offered hand, noting the serpentine intelligence in So-young's smile. Business administration? Psychology, actually, Much more useful in Korea. So Young's laugh held sharp edges. I've been curious about your passionate speech tonight. Kang Min-ho isn't accustomed to public challenges. Then maybe it's time he experienced something new. So Young's eyes glittered like black diamonds. You don't know what you've done, do you? Min-ho owns half of Seoul, and the other half owes him favors. Men like him don't forget slights. Men like him don't intimidate women like me. Before So Young could respond, the crowd parted like water. Kang Min-ho approached with predatory grace. His black Tom Ford suit fitted to perfection. Up close, Victoria noticed details her adrenaline had missed during their confrontation. The way he moved like violence contained in silk. The slight scar disappearing into his hairline. The wedding ring finger that remained suspiciously bare. Ms. Hamilton. His English carried only the faintest accent. Perhaps we could continue our discussion privately. It wasn't a request. Lead the way, Mr. Kang. He guided her through glass doors onto a terrace overlooking the Han River. Seoul stretched before them in rivers of neon and shadow, a city that never truly slept. Rain threatened in the heavy clouds above. You're either very brave or very foolish, Min-ho said, his back to the ballroom. In my experience, Americans often mistake the two. And in my experience, men who hide behind threats usually have something to hide. Victoria moved to stand beside him at the railing. Your financial records are public, Mr. Kang. I've spent 3 weeks studying them. 3 weeks. His smile held no warmth. How thorough. Thorough enough to know you're not just a CEO. You're something much more dangerous. Min-ho turned to face her fully. This close, Victoria could see gold flecks in his dark eyes, and something else. A loneliness so profound, it made her chest tighten unexpectedly. Dangerous men don't host charity galas, Ms. Hamilton. Dangerous men host charity galas to wash blood off their money. The silence stretched between them like a held breath. Rain began to fall in gentle drops, speckling the stone terrace. You should return to America, Min-ho said finally. Seoul isn't safe for women who ask the wrong questions. Is that a threat? It's advice. I rarely give it twice. Victoria stepped closer, close enough to see her reflection in his eyes. I don't take advice from men who think money can buy silence. Something shifted in Min-ho's expression. Surprise, perhaps even admiration. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? For a heartbeat, his mask slipped entirely. Victoria glimpsed the man beneath the careful construction, scarred, tired, and desperately alone. Then his phone buzzed against his chest, and the vulnerability vanished. Enjoy your stay in Seoul, Ms. Hamilton, he said, stepping back into the ballroom. I hope it's brief. But as Victoria stood alone in the rain, she realized she'd just declared war on a man who might be the most fascinating enemy she'd ever encountered. Victoria's hotel suite at the Four Seasons felt like a gilded cage. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, Seoul sprawled in organized chaos. Ancient palaces shadowed by glass towers, tradition and modernity locked in eternal negotiation. She'd barely slept, her mind replaying every micro-expression from Min-ho's face during their terrace encounter. Her laptop screen glowed with financial documents spread across multiple tabs. Apex Holdings, Min-ho's flagship company, showed suspicious patterns that made her investigative instincts sing. Shell companies appearing and disappearing like smoke. Real estate transactions that lost money on paper, but somehow generated massive liquidity. A knock interrupted her analysis. Room service arrived with breakfast she hadn't ordered. Traditional Korean banchan arranged with artistic precision, plus a single red rose. The card read, "For the woman brave enough to speak truth to power. A concerned friend." Victoria's photographer's eye immediately cataloged details: expensive cardstock, masculine handwriting, ink that caught light like obsidian. This wasn't random admiration. Someone was watching her investigation. Her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at Bukchan Hanak Village, 2 p.m. Come alone." Against every instinct her father had trained into her, Victoria found herself walking through Seoul's traditional district 3 hours later. Bukchan's preserved Hanak houses created an island of historical calm amid the city's modern urgency. Tourists wandered with cameras, but Victoria sensed she was being watched by eyes more calculating than curious. Ms. Hamilton. She spun to find Park Jun-sik emerging from a tea house, his gray suit impeccable despite the afternoon heat. Minho's right-hand man carried himself with military precision, but Victoria caught the slight tremor in his hands as he approached. "Mr. Park, you're my mysterious correspondent. We need to talk." His English, though accented, carried authority. "About what you think you know regarding my employer." "I don't think I know. The question is what you're willing to tell me about it." Park gestured toward a secluded courtyard where traditional architecture created privacy from prying ears. They sat on wooden benches worn smooth by centuries of conversation. "Kang Minho isn't who you think he is," Park began, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think he's a criminal using legitimate businesses to launder money for organized crime. Am I warm?" Park's hand unconsciously moved to his chest, the tell Victoria had noticed at the gala. "You're playing with forces beyond your comprehension. Then help me comprehend them." For a long moment, Park studied her face as if solving a complex equation. Minho's father was murdered when he was 19, shot 6 times outside a Busan warehouse. The official investigation concluded it was a robbery gone wrong. Victoria felt her pulse accelerate. "But you know differently." "I know many things I wish I could forget." Park's voice carried the weight of decades. The boy who inherited his father's empire had 2 choices: destroy it or become it. He chose to become it. He chose to survive it. There's a difference, though perhaps not one that matters to your investigation. Victoria leaned forward, sensing crucial information hovering just beyond reach. What about his mother? Does she know? Matriarch Kang knows her son isn't the businessman she raised him to be, but she's chosen willful blindness over unbearable truth. Park stood abruptly, as if the conversation had already cost him too much. "Go home, Ms. Hamilton. Seoul has enough ghosts without adding you to the collection. Why are you warning me? Shouldn't loyalty to Minho mean protecting his secrets?" Park paused, his back still turned. Sometimes protecting someone means saving them from themselves. As he walked away, Victoria realized she wasn't just investigating financial crimes anymore. She was unraveling the tragic architecture of a man who'd sacrificed his soul to protect the people he loved. But what she couldn't know was that across the city, in a penthouse office overlooking Gangnam, Minho was watching security footage of her conversation with Park, his scarred hand clenched into a fist as he realized the only man he trusted had just betrayed him for the American woman who was determined to destroy everything. The Hamilton Group's temporary Seoul office buzzed with controlled urgency as Victoria spread documents across the conference table. 3 weeks of investigation had yielded a paper trail that told a story of systematic corruption spanning 5 years. But it wasn't the financial evidence that made her hands shake. It was the photograph Park Jun-sik had slipped her during their second clandestine meeting. Black and white surveillance footage showed a younger Minho outside a warehouse, his face a mask of cold determination. In his hand, barely visible but unmistakable to Victoria's trained eye, was a gun. "Jesus," she whispered, sinking into her chair. Her assistant, Sarah, looked up from her laptop. "Find something significant?" Victoria quickly covered the photograph. "Just connecting some dots. Can you give me an hour of privacy?" Once alone, Victoria studied the image until her eyes burned. This wasn't the polished CEO who'd faced her at the gala. This was someone capable of violence, someone who'd crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed. Her phone buzzed. Stop digging. Final warning. But Victoria's pulse spiked. Minho was monitoring her investigation, probably had been from the beginning. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it sent an unexpected thrill down her spine. She typed back, "Make me stop." Her phone stayed silent for 20 minutes. Then, "Lotus Restaurant, 1 hour, come alone." Victoria stared at the message, every rational instinct screaming warnings. Meeting a potentially dangerous man in an isolated location violated every rule her father had taught her about business negotiations. But the photograph on her desk told a story that demanded answers, regardless of risk. The Lotus Restaurant occupied a renovated hanok in Insadong, its traditional architecture a stark contrast to the modern city surrounding it. Victoria arrived to find the establishment mysteriously empty, except for Minho, who sat at a corner table like a king holding court in his private domain. "You cleared the entire restaurant," she observed, taking the seat across from him. "Privacy is valuable when discussing delicate matters." Minho's suit was charcoal gray today, his tie a shade of blue that matched Seoul's winter sky. "You received my message." "Several of them, actually. The threats are getting more specific." "Those weren't threats, Ms. Hamilton. They were warnings. There's a crucial difference." A server appeared with tea service, moving with the silent efficiency of someone accustomed to serving dangerous men. Victoria waited until they were alone again, before placing the photograph on the table between them. "Busan, 2018, she said. "You're carrying a weapon." Minho glanced at the image without reaction. "Surveillance photos can be misleading. Park Jun-sik says your father was murdered. That you inherited more than just business interests. Park Jun-sik talks too much." Minho's voice carried deadly calm, but Victoria caught the flicker of betrayal in his eyes. "What exactly do you want, Ms. Hamilton? Money? A business partnership? Or are you simply here to play journalist with someone else's tragedy?" "I want the truth." "The truth?" Minho laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. "The truth is that naive American heiresses who dig too deeply into Korean business often disappear without explanation. The truth is that you're sitting across from a man who could end your investigation permanently with a single phone call." Victoria met his stare without flinching. "Is that what happened to your father? Someone made a phone call?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Minho's scarred hand curled into a fist on the white tablecloth. "My father trusted the wrong people," he said finally. "He believed that honor and integrity were sufficient armor against men who view both as weaknesses. His murder taught me that in this world, you either hold the knife or become its victim. So you chose to hold the knife. I chose to survive." Minho leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Every day, I make decisions that would horrify the boy I used to be. I've built an empire on foundations of blood and compromise. But that empire protects hundreds of families, employs thousands of workers, and keeps my mother safe in her beautiful illusion that her son is still the honorable man she raised." Victoria felt something shift in her chest. Not fear, but an unexpected tenderness for the man behind the monster's mask. "You could choose differently now." "Could I?" Minho's smile held infinite sadness. "Once you've crossed certain lines, Ms. Hamilton, there's no path back to innocence. The blood on your hands doesn't wash clean, no matter how many charity galas you host or how much money you donate to orphanages. Everyone deserves redemption." Pretty American optimism. But some of us are too far gone for salvation. Victoria reached across the table, her fingers brushing his scarred hand. The contact sent electricity through both of them. Dangerous, undeniable, Impossible. I don't believe that, she whispered. For a heartbeat, Minho's mask slipped completely. Victoria saw the broken boy who'd lost his father, the young man who'd traded his soul for survival, the leader who carried the weight of everyone else's lives on his shoulders. Then his phone rang, shattering the moment like a gunshot. What is it? Minho answered, his voice immediately shifting to cold command. Victoria couldn't hear the response, but she watched his face transform from vulnerable to predatory in seconds. Handle it. Quietly. He ended the call and stood, his business mask sliding back into place with practiced ease. This conversation never happened, Ms. Hamilton. And if you're wise, you'll book a flight to New York tonight. Why? What's changed? Minho paused at the restaurant's entrance, his silhouette framed against Seoul's neon twilight. Because someone just tried to kill Park Jun-sik. And now you're the only witness who can connect me to information that could start a war. As he disappeared into the city's shadows, Victoria realized her investigation had just evolved from dangerous to potentially fatal, and that the man she was falling for might be her only protection against forces that would kill to keep their secrets buried. Victoria's hands trembled as she dialed Park Jun-sik's number for the 5th time in an hour. Each call went straight to voicemail, and the fear that had been gnawing at her chest since Minho's revelation threatened to consume her entirely. Her hotel suite felt like a trap. Every shadow could hide an assassin, every sound in the hallway could herald her destruction. She'd photographed every document in her possession and uploaded them to a secure cloud server. But paper trails meant nothing if she died before exposing them. The knock on her door at 11 p.m. froze her blood. Room service, a voice called in accented English. Victoria hadn't ordered room service. She approached the door carefully, peering through the peephole to see a hotel employee with a cart. But something about his posture, too alert, too watchful, screamed danger to her paranoid mind. Her phone buzzed. Trust me. Back exit. Now. M. Without hesitation, Victoria grabbed her laptop and camera, slipping out through the suite's service entrance as she'd seen in countless spy films. The hotel's back corridors were dimly lit and eerily empty, but she followed signs toward the garage level. Minho waited by a black Mercedes, his usual polish replaced by urgent practicality. Jeans, dark sweater, leather jacket. He looked less like a CEO and more like the dangerous man she was beginning to understand he truly was. Get in, he ordered, already scanning the garage for threats. Where's Park? Alive. Barely. Minho pulled into Seoul traffic with practiced speed. 3 men with guns broke into his apartment 2 hours ago. He escaped through a bathroom window, but not before they made it clear they were looking for information about you. Victoria's chest tightened. About me? Why? Because your investigation has attracted attention from people who make me look like a choir boy. Minho took a sharp turn into Gangnam's maze of side streets. There are organizations in Seoul that view foreign interference as a declaration of war. Organizations like yours? Minho's hands tightened on the steering wheel. My organization protects its own interests through controlled violence. These people burn entire families to send messages. They drove in tense silence through Seoul's neon-lit arteries until Minho parked outside an unremarkable apartment building in Hongdae. He led her up 4 flights of stairs to a safe house that looked like any young professional's modest home, except for the security cameras and reinforced door locks. You'll be safe here tonight, Minho said, activating an alarm system with military-grade sophistication. My people will rotate guard shifts, and... Your people? Victoria interrupted. You mean your criminal organization is protecting me? My criminal organization is the only thing standing between you and a very painful death, Ms. Hamilton. The reality of her situation finally crashed over Victoria like a cold wave. She was trapped in Seoul, dependent on a man she'd tried to expose, surrounded by violence she didn't understand. The strong, independent woman who'd built a hotel empire was suddenly as helpless as a child. "Hey." Minho's voice softened as he watched her composure crack. "You're safe. I won't let anyone hurt you." "Why?" Victoria looked up at him, tears threatening despite her determination to stay strong. "Why protect me? I came here to destroy you." Minho stepped closer, his eyes reflecting something vulnerable and raw. "Because in 20 years of careful control, you're the first person who's made me remember who I used to be. I don't know who you used to be. Neither do I anymore. But when you challenged me at that gala, when you spoke about truth and justice like they still mattered, for just a moment, I remembered what it felt like to believe in something pure." Victoria felt the distance between them evaporating like morning mist. "Minho, you should hate me," he whispered, his face inches from hers. "Everything you've discovered about me is true. I've killed people, Victoria. I've ordered deaths and watched men beg for mercy I couldn't give. I'm exactly the monster you came to Seoul to expose. But you're also the man who cleared an entire restaurant just to explain yourself to me. The man who's risking his empire to keep me safe." Victoria's hand touched his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing beneath her palm. "You're not just a monster, Minho. You're a man who's forgotten how to be anything else." The kiss happened like lightning. Sudden, inevitable, electric. Minho's hands tangled in her hair as Victoria pressed against him. Months of dangerous attraction exploding into desperate need. She tasted rain and regret on his lips, felt the tremor in his hands as he held her like she was both salvation and damnation. When they broke apart, both breathless, Victoria saw tears in his dark eyes. "I can't love you," he whispered against her forehead. "Men like me don't get happy endings. Maybe it's time you stop deciding what you deserve." Minho pulled away, his mask sliding back into place with visible effort. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow I'll arrange safe transport back to America." "I'm not leaving." "Victoria, I'm not leaving you to face this alone." Something broke in Minho's expression. For just a moment, Victoria glimpsed the boy who'd lost his father, the man who'd carried impossible burdens in solitude for so long he'd forgotten what trust felt like. Then his phone buzzed with an urgent text that made his face go pale. "What is it?" Victoria asked. Minho stared at the message, his jaw clenching with barely contained fury. "Someone just sent photos of our kiss to every major news outlet in Seoul. By morning, your face will be on every gossip site in Korea as the foreign woman who seduced the untouchable Kang Min-ho." Victoria felt ice form in her veins. "What does that mean?" "It means," Minho said, his voice deadly quiet, "that someone is using our relationship to destroy both of us. And they've just made the most dangerous mistake of their lives." As Seoul's lights twinkled beyond the safe house windows, Victoria realized that falling in love with Minho hadn't just complicated her investigation. It had made her a target in a war she was only beginning to understand. The photographs hit Seoul's gossip sites like napalm. Victoria stared at her laptop screen in horror as images of her kiss with Minho spread across social media with viral intensity. Hamilton Harris seduces Korean chaebol topped trending searches, while comment sections exploded with speculation about the mysterious American woman who'd captured Seoul's most eligible bachelor. "Turn it off," Minho ordered from across the safe house's kitchen table, where he coordinated damage control through a series of increasingly tense phone calls. Reading the comments won't help. But Victoria couldn't look away. The photos were artistically composed, clearly shot by a professional with a telephoto lens. Someone had been watching them, waiting for exactly this moment of vulnerability. "Who benefits from exposing us?" she asked when Minho ended his latest call. "Multiple parties. Business rivals who want to destabilize my public image. Government officials who suspect my legitimate businesses are fronts. Criminal organizations who view my protection of you as weakness." Minho's scarred hand flexed with barely contained violence. "The question is who had the resources and access to orchestrate this level of surveillance." Victoria's phone rang, her father calling from New York. She'd been dreading this conversation since the story broke 3 hours ago. "Victoria Elizabeth Hamilton." James Hamilton's voice carried across the Pacific like rolling thunder. "What in God's name is happening in Seoul?" "Dad, I can explain. The Wall Street Journal just called asking about your romantic entanglement with a Korean businessman under federal investigation for money laundering. The hotel board is in emergency session because our stock price dropped 12 points in 2 hours. So please, by all means, explain." Victoria felt her carefully constructed professional reputation crumbling in real time. "I'm investigating financial crimes that could impact our Asian expansion. By sleeping with the primary suspect? I'm not sleeping with..." Victoria caught Minho watching her with dark amusement. "It's more complicated than the photographs suggest. It's always more complicated with you, sweetheart. But this time, your complications have international consequences." James Hamilton's sigh carried decades of paternal concern. "I'm sending a security team and a legal advisor. You're coming home immediately." "I can't leave yet." "Victoria, there are people who want to kill me, Dad. Minho is the only thing keeping me alive right now." Silence stretched across the connection as James Hamilton processed this information. "Kill you? What kind of investigation have you stumbled into?" Victoria looked at Minho, who nodded grimly. If her father was sending security teams anyway, partial truth might be safer than complete deception. The kind where organized crime and legitimate business intersect in ways that threaten billions of dollars in illegal profits. "I've discovered evidence of systematic money laundering, but documenting it has made me a target." "Then come home and turn your evidence over to federal authorities." "It's not that simple. The corruption involves Korean government officials, American business interests, and criminal organizations on both sides of the Pacific. If I run now, people will die to cover up what I've uncovered." Another long pause. "People including Kang Minho?" Victoria met Minho's eyes across the small apartment. "People including the man I think I'm falling in love with." The admission hung in the air like smoke. Minho's expression shifted through surprise, vulnerability, and something that might have been hope before settling on resigned acceptance. "I'll call you back," James Hamilton said, and disconnected. Victoria set down her phone to find Minho studying her with unreadable intensity. "You think you're falling in love with me?" he said. It wasn't a question. "I know I am. The question is whether you're brave enough to let yourself love me back." Minho stood and walked to the apartment's small window, staring out at Seoul's endless lights. "Love is a luxury I can't afford. It makes you vulnerable, gives enemies weapons they can use against you. It also gives you something worth fighting for besides survival. You don't understand what you're asking." Minho's voice carried the weight of years of careful control. "I've built my life around emotional distance because caring gets people killed. My father loved his family too much to see betrayal coming. That love destroyed him." Victoria joined him at the window, close enough to feel his tension radiating like heat. "Your father's love didn't destroy him. Someone else's greed and violence did. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Every person I've allowed myself to care about has become a target. My mother lives behind bodyguards because her son is a criminal. Park Jun-sik nearly died tonight because he tried to protect you. How many casualties am I supposed to accept for the privilege of feeling human?" Victoria turned to face him fully. "What if, instead of seeing love as weakness, You saw it as strength. What if caring about people motivated you to be better instead of more careful? Better? Minho laughed bitterly. Victoria, 3 hours ago I ordered the execution of a man who threatened your safety. While you were reading gossip articles, I was authorizing torture to extract information about who's targeting you. The blood on my hands isn't metaphorical. The revelation should have horrified her. Instead, Victoria felt a strange calm settle over her spirit. Did it work? The torture? Minho looked startled by her matter-of-fact question. Yes, we know who's orchestrating the surveillance and media attacks. Then you did what you had to do to protect someone you care about. That doesn't make you a monster. It makes you a man, fighting with the only tools you know how to use. You're not afraid of me. I'm terrified of you, Victoria admitted. But I'm also terrified of spending the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to love you. Minho's resistance cracked like ice under spring sun. He pulled Victoria against him with desperate urgency, burying his face in her hair as if she were his only anchor to humanity. If we do this, he whispered, if I let myself love you, there's no going back. My enemies will try to destroy you, my allies will see you as weakness, and my mother will hate you for representing everything she fears about my true nature. And if we don't do this, we'll both spend the rest of our lives wondering what we threw away out of fear. Minho pulled back to look at her face, searching for any hint of doubt or deception. Finding none, he kissed her with a tenderness that spoke of promises and prayers. When they parted, Victoria saw a different man in his eyes. Not the careful criminal or the polished CEO, but someone raw and real and utterly committed to whatever came next. I love you, he said, the words sounding like a confession and a battle cry simultaneously. God help us both, but I love you, Victoria Hamilton. I love you too, Minho. All of you, the good and the bad and everything in between. As they held each other in the small safe house apartment, Soul's lights painting patterns on their skin, neither could know that across the city, forces were already mobilizing to test whether their love was strong enough to survive the war it had just declared. Victoria woke to the sound of Minho's voice speaking rapid Korean on the phone, his tone carrying the cold authority she was learning to recognize as his operational persona. Pale morning light filtered through the safe house's reinforced windows, and the smell of strong coffee suggested he'd been awake for hours coordinating responses to their crisis. What's the situation? She asked when he ended the call. Minho turned to face her, and Victoria's heart clenched at the exhaustion etched in his features. Choi So-young. She's the one behind the surveillance and media manipulation. So-young? Your ex-fiancé? Former fiancé. Current nightmare. Minho's jaw tightened with barely contained fury. She's been feeding information to both Korean prosecutors and what she believes are American federal investigators. Her goal was to force you out of Seoul and destroy my relationship with you by any means necessary. Victoria felt pieces clicking into place. The photographers at the restaurant, the coordinated media blitz. She orchestrated everything, including putting you in danger. So-young contacted some very dangerous people and told them an American investigator was threatening to expose their operations. She didn't care if they killed you to solve the problem. The casual mention of her potential murder sent ice through Victoria's veins, but she forced herself to focus on strategy rather than panic. What does she want? Minho's phone buzzed with an incoming text. His face darkened as he read the message. She wants to meet. Neutral location, just her and you. She says she has a proposal that will resolve everything cleanly. It's obviously a trap. Obviously. But So-young isn't stupid enough to try anything violent in public. She's gambling that she can manipulate or intimidate you into leaving voluntarily. Minho met Victoria's eyes with grim determination. I'm not letting you go alone. Actually, you are. Victoria, if she wanted me dead, I'd already be dead. This is about control and humiliation, not murder. Let me talk to her woman to woman. Sometimes direct confrontation is more effective than elaborate schemes. 3 hours later, Victoria sat across from Choi So-young in the private dining room of an upscale restaurant in Cheongdam-dong. So-young looked flawless in cream-colored Chanel, her makeup applied with surgical precision, and her smile sharp enough to draw blood. "You're more beautiful than the photographs suggested," So-young began in perfect English, her tone conversational despite the obvious threat in her posture. "I can see why Min-ho was temporarily distracted." Temporarily? Men like Min-ho don't change their fundamental nature for foreign curiosities. You represent rebellion against expectations, but rebellion always burns itself out eventually. So-young sipped her tea delicately. "The question is how much damage you're willing to cause in the meantime." Victoria studied her opponent across the pristine white tablecloth. So-young carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to getting what she wanted through calculated manipulation. "What do you want, So-young?" "I want you gone. Out of Seoul, out of Korea, out of Min-ho's life, permanently." "And in return?" "In return, the media campaign against you stops. The photographs disappear from social media. Your hotel company's stock price recovers. Your father's business reputation remains intact." So-young leaned forward with predatory grace. "More importantly, the criminal organizations I've inadvertently provoked lose interest in eliminating you." Victoria felt her pulse accelerate. "You're blackmailing me." "I'm offering you a solution to problems I created while protecting someone I love." So-young's mask slipped slightly, revealing genuine pain beneath the polished surface. "Min-ho and I were engaged for 3 years. We built our lives around each other, planned futures that integrated our families and business interests. Then you appeared and reduced everything to ruins in 3 weeks. I didn't seduce him away from you. Your engagement was already over." "Was it? Or did Min-ho simply convince himself it was over because he was bored, and you represented something exotic and dangerous?" So-young's laugh carried bitter edges. "You don't understand Korean culture, Victoria. Relationships here aren't just about individual feelings. They're about family honor, social obligations, and generational planning. What you call love, we call temporary insanity." Despite herself, Victoria felt So-young's words hitting vulnerable targets. She was foreign, temporary, potentially destructive to everything Min-ho had built. Even if that's true, it should be his choice to make. His choices affect everyone around him. His mother, his employees, his business partners, his community. Your American individualism is a luxury that wealthy Korean men can't afford. So-young placed a manila envelope on the table between them. 48 hours, Victoria. Leave Seoul voluntarily, or I'll destroy both of you in ways that make this week's gossip look like friendly publicity." Victoria opened the envelope to find photographs that made her blood freeze. Images of her father leaving his New York office, her assistant Sarah shopping in Seoul, her best friend Emma walking her dog in Central Park. "You're threatening my family?" "I'm demonstrating the scope of resources available to me. Your investigation has attracted attention from people who view collateral damage as acceptable cost of doing business." So-young's voice carried deadly certainty. "Leave, and everyone you love remains safe. Stay, and learn what happens when Americans interfere in matters beyond their understanding." Victoria stared at the photographs, her mind racing through possibilities and consequences. So-young had played this perfectly, using Victoria's love for other people as leverage against her determination to save Min-ho. What about Min-ho? What happens to him if I leave? Min-ho survives because he's valuable. His organization continues operating. His mother remains protected. And eventually he marries someone appropriate who understands her place in his world. So Young smiled with vicious satisfaction. Everyone wins except your romantic delusions. Victoria closed the envelope, her decision crystallizing with painful clarity. She couldn't risk her family's safety for a relationship that might be exactly the temporary rebellion So Young described. 48 hours, she said quietly. 48 hours, So Young confirmed. And Victoria? Don't make the mistake of thinking Minho will choose you over everything else he's built. Korean men understand sacrifice in ways that American women rarely comprehend. As Victoria walked out of the restaurant into Seoul's humid afternoon, she realized she'd just agreed to break her own heart to save everyone she loved, including the man she'd have to convince to let her go. But what she couldn't know was that Minho had been monitoring the meeting through carefully placed surveillance, and that he'd just heard every word of So Young's ultimatum, including the threats against Victoria's family that would require him to make the most dangerous choice of his carefully controlled life. Victoria returned to the safe house to find Minho staring at his laptop screen with the focused intensity of a man planning war. Documents covered every surface. Photographs, financial records, personnel files, and what appeared to be surveillance reports dating back months. "How much did you hear?" she asked, setting down her purse with carefully controlled calm. "All of it." Minho didn't look up from his screen. "So Young's been preparing this operation since the night you challenged me at the Gala. She's documented your investigation, mapped your family's routines, and cultivated relationships with some genuinely dangerous people." Victoria sank into the chair across from him, exhaustion settling into her bones like lead. "Then you know I have to leave." "Do I?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications Victoria wasn't ready to examine. She'd spent the entire ride back from her meeting with So Young mentally preparing for the conversation about sacrifice and noble self-denial, but Minho's tone suggested he had different plans. "She has photographs of my family, Minho. My father, my friends, people who have nothing to do with any of this. I can't risk their lives for a relationship that started 3 weeks ago." "What if I told you there was another option?" Victoria looked up to find Minho watching her, with the calculating expression she was learning, meant he'd identified a solution that would require considerable risk. "I'm listening." Minho turned his laptop around to show her a document that made her pulse accelerate. It was a contract written in Korean and English, stamped with official seals and signed by multiple parties. "This is a cooperation agreement between So Young's family business and an organization called the Red Phoenix Syndicate, dated 6 months ago, well before your arrival in Seoul." Victoria leaned forward to study the details. "What kind of cooperation?" "Money laundering through her family's art import business. The Red Phoenix has been looking for legitimate fronts to clean profits from human trafficking and drug distribution. So Young provided access to international auction houses and private collectors who don't ask questions about provenance." "How did you get this?" "So Young made the mistake of threatening someone I care about. That activated resources she doesn't know I possess." Minho's smile held no warmth. "She positioned herself as concerned about your investigation, but she's actually terrified you'll discover evidence of her own criminal activities." Victoria felt the chess game shifting beneath her feet. "She's not protecting you from me. She's protecting herself." "Exactly. And her partnership with the Red Phoenix makes her far more vulnerable than she realizes." Minho closed the laptop and looked at Victoria directly. "I can destroy her in 24 hours, expose her criminal activities, have her arrested by Korean authorities, and neutralize her threats against your family. What's the cost? Direct war with the Red Phoenix Syndicate. They'll view my actions against their partner as a declaration of hostilities. My organization isn't afraid of that conflict, but it will be bloody and public in ways that could destroy my mother's life." Victoria understood the impossible choice Minho was offering her. save their relationship by sacrificing his mother's safety, or accept So Young's ultimatum and spare everyone except their own hearts. There has to be another way. There is. Min-ho stood and walked to a secure safe hidden behind a bookshelf. From it, he withdrew a thick manila folder sealed with red wax. But it requires trusting me with something that could destroy both of us. Victoria accepted the folder with trembling hands. The wax seal bore an insignia she didn't recognize, a stylized phoenix surrounded by Korean characters. What is this? Documentation of every criminal transaction my organization has conducted for the past 5 years. Financial records, operational plans, personnel files, evidence of bribes, murders, and money laundering that would send half of Seoul's elite to prison for life. Min-ho's voice carried the weight of absolute confession, including complete evidence of my own crimes. Victoria stared at the sealed folder as if it were a bomb. Why are you giving this to me? Because it's the only leverage strong enough to protect you from So Young and the Red Phoenix, while giving us time to find a permanent solution. Min-ho returned to his chair, his hands clasped with forced calm. Take that evidence to the American embassy. Tell them you've uncovered a criminal conspiracy that spans both countries. Request protection for your family and yourself while you cooperate with international authorities. And you? What happens to you when I turn over evidence of your crimes? I get arrested, tried, and probably spend the rest of my life in prison. But you stay alive. Your family remains safe. And So Young loses all leverage because the story becomes about international justice rather than personal scandal. Victoria felt tears burning behind her eyes. You're asking me to destroy you to save myself. I'm asking you to choose your family's lives over my freedom. It's not a difficult moral calculation. It is if I love you. Min-ho reached across the table to touch her hand gently. Then love me enough to let me do something honorable for once. Let me protect you the way I should have protected my father. Victoria stared at the sealed folder containing Min-ho's life and freedom, wrapped in red wax and impossible choices. Outside the safe house windows, Seoul pulsed with its usual energy, oblivious to the decision that would reshape multiple lives. There has to be another way, she whispered. Maybe there is, Min-ho said quietly. But we have 36 hours to find it before So Young's deadline expires and people start dying. As if summoned by their conversation, Min-ho's phone buzzed with an urgent message. His face went pale as he read it. What now? Victoria asked. Park Jun-sik. He's been taken. Red Phoenix operatives grabbed him 2 hours ago. Min-ho stood with deadly purpose, his casual clothes suddenly seeming like battle gear. They're going to torture him for information about our operations and then kill him publicly as a warning. Victoria felt the walls closing in around them. How long do we have? If Park talks immediately, maybe 6 hours before they come for us. If he tries to protect us. Min-ho's voice trailed off as he contemplated his mentor's capacity for sacrifice. Then we'd better find that third option fast, Victoria said, standing to face whatever came next. Because I refuse to let anyone else die for our love story. But even as she spoke with determined confidence, Victoria knew that with Park's capture, their impossible situation had just become potentially fatal for everyone she cared about. The abandoned warehouse in Incheon reeked of rust and fear. Victoria crouched behind a shipping container, her heart hammering against her ribs as Min-ho coordinated with his team through an earpiece. They'd located Park Jun-sik within 4 hours of his abduction, but rescuing him would require the kind of violence Victoria had only seen in movies. You shouldn't be here, Min-ho whispered for the 3rd time, checking his gun with practiced efficiency. This isn't a negotiation or a business meeting. People are going to die tonight. Park was taken because of me. I'm not hiding in the safe house while you risk your life to fix my mistakes. Your mistake was falling in love with me. Everything else is just consequence. Through the warehouse's broken windows, Victoria could see Red Phoenix guards patrolling the perimeter with automatic weapons. Somewhere inside the building, Park was being tortured for information that could destroy Minho's entire organization. 2 minutes, came the voice through Minho's earpiece. All teams in position. Minho looked at Victoria one final time, his eyes reflecting 1,000 unspoken fears. If something goes wrong, if I don't make it out, you're making it out. We both are. Along with Park. Victoria grabbed his face between her hands, forcing him to meet her determined gaze. No noble sacrifice speeches. We're all going home tonight. The first gunshot shattered the warehouse's silence like breaking glass. Minho moved with lethal grace, Victoria following close behind as they navigated through corridors filled with the sounds of battle. His team had clearly done this before. Each movement coordinated, each advance calculated to minimize risk while maximizing tactical advantage. They found Park in a makeshift interrogation room, zip-tied to a metal chair and bloodied but alive. 2 Red Phoenix operatives lay dead nearby, evidence of Minho's team's swift efficiency. Took you long enough, Park managed through swollen lips, though his eyes showed relief at seeing them both alive. Can you walk? Minho asked, cutting through the restraints with a tactical knife. I can run if necessary, but we have a problem. They know about the Hamilton family's security arrangements. They're planning to grab Victoria's father when he lands in Seoul tomorrow. Victoria felt ice form in her veins. Dad's coming to Seoul. Emergency flight. He should be landing at Incheon around noon. Park struggled to his feet, leaning heavily on Minho for support. So-young gave them his flight information, hotel reservations, security details. It's a trap designed to force your compliance. Then we stop them, Victoria said with deadly calm. We? Minho looked at her with something between admiration and terror. Victoria, these people kill families to send messages. Your father isn't trained for this kind of threat. Then we make sure he never faces it. The warehouse erupted in fresh gunfire as more Red Phoenix operatives arrived, turning their rescue mission into a running battle through industrial corridors. Victoria stayed close to Minho as they fought their way toward the exit, her photographer's eye cataloging details that her